Messages have been slipped into bottles and shipped on mysterious voyages at least since 310 BC, when Greek philosopher Theophrastus employed the tactic to test his theory that the Atlantic flows into the Mediterranean Sea. But aside from researchers studying oceanic circulation, there are many other motives that compel people to cork up their words and send them on seafaring adventures. From rescue pleas and sad farewells to random notes, messages in bottles are a curious antidote to the high-speed modes of communication we have come accustomed to. So here are 10 mysterious messages found in a bottle. Don't forget to like this video, hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon for more spooky content. Number 10. The Titanic. Many people have undoubtedly wondered over the years if any of the Titanic passengers had the time and presence of mind to write a note, find a bottle and toss it into the Atlantic as the great ship was sinking. Well, it turns out someone did. A young Irishman named Jeremy Burke was traveling with a cousin to join their family in Boston. He was off to start a new life and was excited about the possibilities. So, when the Titanic began to sink and Burke realized he would perish, he managed to write out a note. Before his departure from Ireland, his mother had given him a small bottle of holy water. In his last moments, Burke put his note into the bottle and cast it into the sea. His note read, "From Titanic, goodbye all, Burke of Glanmire, Cork." Sadly, both Burke and his cousin perished in the sinking, and his poignant message washed ashore in the bottle a year later, just a few miles from his home. Number 9. Far-flung message of love. In 1956, a young Swedish man named A. Viking was out at sea and lonely for love. One evening, he decided to send his quest for love out into the ocean via a message in a bottle. After all, back then there were no internet dating sites. The note included his contact information and a message that read, "To someone beautiful and far away." He did not seriously think anything would come of it, but 2 years later, he received a response from an Italian woman named Paula. When she wrote back to him, she explained, "I am not beautiful. It is so miraculous that the bottle should have traveled so far and long to reach me that I must send you an answer." The two began to write letters back and forth and fell in love over the course of their correspondence. Eventually, the couple met and Viking left his life at sea to marry Paulina and move to Sicily. Number 8. A lifesaver. Curtis Whitson, his 13-year-old son, and his girlfriend Crystal Ramirez went backpacking at the Arroyo Seco River in California for Father's Day weekend in 2019. Though Whitson is very familiar with the Central California coast forest, he didn't expect to find himself trapped between 40-foot rocks and a strong water current. Whitson and his crew planned to float down the river to their campground, but the currents made the river impassable, and the rope previously in place to help hikers out of such a situation was gone. Once they realized they were stuck, the group used the paper they had on hand to write a message that read, "We are stuck here at the waterfall, get help please," and the date June 15, 2019. They placed the message in a green water bottle, scratched "help" into the side and tossed it over the waterfall. Two unidentified hikers found the message, and the California Highway Patrol rescued 3 stranded hikers the following day. Number 7. Castaway. The macabre case of Japanese castaway Shunosuke Matsuyama and his 43 companions continues to astound people today. He began his voyage in search of buried treasure on a Pacific island, but came across a storm that blew them onto a coral reef and forced the sailors to seek refuge on a nearby island. Unable to find fresh water or sufficient food on the island, the crew survived mostly on crabs and coconuts. but soon began to die from dehydration and starvation. Before his own death, Matsuyama carved a message telling the story of his group's shipwreck into thin pieces of wood from a coconut tree, which he inserted into a bottle and threw into the ocean. Approximately 151 years later, in 1935, a Japanese seaweed collector found the bottle. The bottle had washed ashore in the village of Hiryatsurumura, where Matsuyama was born. Number 6. Paula. In 2018, an Australian woman discovered the oldest known message in a bottle on sand dunes in Australia. Tonya Illman discovered a bottle while walking along the beach and picked it up. To her surprise, she noticed a rolled up piece of paper secured with a small piece of string inside the bottle. After letting the bottle and note dry out, Illman and her family unrolled the note to find handwriting in German. That included information about the location and route of a ship called the Paula. At first, Illman assumed the message was a hoax. However, Illman's husband did some research online. The message included a date which corresponded with an ongoing program conducted in Germany from 1864 to 1963. Captains would routinely throw bottles in the sea and write down the name of the ship, the date, the precise coordinates, and the travel route. Given the message included this information, the family took the bottle to a maritime museum where a curator determined the message was authentic and had indeed been released as part of the program. The message in the bottle was roughly 132 years old. This makes it the oldest known message in a bottle, surpassing the previous record of 108 years. Number 5. Starcrossed Lovers. On a lonely Christmas day in 1945, a 21-year-old soldier named Frank Hayostake was returning from World War II to start a new life back home. While leaving on a transport ship, he tossed the letter in a bottle overboard, hoping that maybe his message would be discovered and he would make a new friend. The bottle floated around the sea for 8 whole months, finally washing ashore in Ireland, where a 19-year-old milkmaid named Breda O'Sullivan found it, read the note, and decided to write to the young veteran, marking the beginning of their 7-year correspondence. Eventually, Hayostake's interest was piqued enough to plan a trip to Ireland and meet O'Sullivan. He didn't make much money but was able to set aside $30 per month, and after 6 years he at long last flew to Ireland. Somehow the international press heard of the long distance romance and pursued the couple as Hayostake arrived at Shannon Airport. Number 4. A mother's love. Sometimes, due to death or distance, a person is unable to send a message to a loved one in the conventional ways. Such was the case for a French mother crossing the English Channel on a ferry back in 2002. She had lost her son Maurice when he was only 13 years old. In her grief, she sent a teardrop-shaped bottle, some items of children's clothing, and lilies into the sea. The bottle contained the following heartbreaking message: "Forgive me for being so angry at your disappearance. I still think there has been some mistake and I keep waiting for God to fix it. Forgive me for not having known how to protect you from death. Forgive me for not having able to find the words at that terrible moment when you slipped through my fingers." The bottle and other items drifted away from the ferryboat and out of sight. However, the bottle was retrieved only a few weeks later when 2 individuals named Sioux Peto and Karen Lee Birch found it on a beach in Kent, England. Captivated, the 2 women had the letter translated and searched for the letter's author for several years, resulting in the publication of Lee Birch's book. The letter and the bottle detailed the discovery and search. A few years later, the mother, who remains unnamed, contacted Lee Birch and the 2 women finally met in France. Number 3. Lusitania. The Lusitania was once a luxury ocean liner meeting its demise within years of the Titanic. Despite the fate of its predecessor, the Lusitania continued to sail undeterred by the dangers brought about by World War I. That is until the great ship was tragically hit by a German torpedo in May 1915 while on its way from New York to Liverpool. The damage was so severe that the Lusitania sank in only 18 minutes. More than 1,000 people lost their lives and only around 700 were rescued. Somehow, there was one passenger aboard who had the presence of mind and the time to dash off a quick note, put it in a bottle, and set it adrift before the end came. The unknown author chillingly wrote, "Still on deck with a few people, the last boats have left. We are sinking fast. Some men near me are praying with the priest. The end is near. Maybe this note will." The writer of the message must have realized that he only had a few moments left to roll up the note and secure it in a bottle, tossing it into the sea just in time. Number 2. A New Life. A couple vacationing in Hawaii in 1979 decided to have a bit of fun by placing notes and cash inside empty champagne bottles and tossing them into the Pacific from their cruise ship. The couple, Dorothy and John Peckham, added $1 to each bottle as a way to provide postage to anyone who should find the bottles and wish to write back to them. 1983, they received a letter from a former Vietnamese soldier named Hoa Van Nguyen, who had found one of the champagne bottles with his brother under rather difficult circumstances. At the time the brother discovered the bottle, they were floating helplessly off the coast of Thailand in an attempt to escape their miserable lives under the Vietnamese government. When they reached shore, they used the dollar to purchase postage and mailed the letter to the Peckhams. The Peckhams were thrilled to receive the letter and determined to make the Vietnamese family's immigration happen. 2 years later, in 1985, the Peckhams met Nguyen and were able to help him and his family move to the United States to begin a new and happier life. Number 1. A message that is better late than never. Another poignant World War I story involving a message in a bottle concerns a young British soldier named P.B.T. Thomas Hughes. It was 1914, the first year in the war, and Hughes was lonely aboard a transport ship. He wrote a letter to his wife, but with no way to mail it to her, he decided to take a chance and stuff the letter into a ginger ale bottle, seal it, and cast it into the English Channel. Poor P.B.T. Hughes died only 2 days later on a French battlefield. His wife never received his letter. But that was not the end of the story. Decades later, in 1999, the bottle was found bobbing around in the Thames by a local fisherman. He and others tried to find Hughes' wife, but it turned out that she passed away in 1979. However, a little more digging produced some good news. It was discovered that Hughes had a daughter, who was then an elderly 86-year-old living in New Zealand. She was only 1 year old when she lost her father, but she lived to receive the letter he wrote to her mother all those years ago. His message read, "Dear wife, I'm writing this note on this boat and dropping it into the sea just to see if it will reach you. If it does, sign this envelope on the right-hand bottom corner where it says receipt. Put the date and hour of receipt and your name where it says signature and look after it well. Tata, sweet, for the present, your hubby."